The Lord bringeth the counsel of the heathen to naught. He maketh the devices of the people of none effect. The counsel of the Lord standeth forever, the thoughts of his heart to all generations. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, and the people whom he hath chosen for his own inheritance. Note that all power given to the people is a reference to anti-Semites, who will be destroyed, the counsel of the heathen to naught. These are the blind pagans we referred before under verse 6. The nation whose God is the Lord, verse 12, is Israel, not some democracy with a government of the people and for the people. The people that God chose for his inheritance, verse 12, are to be under a theocratic dictatorship, Revelation chapter 20, verse 4, Isaiah chapter 11, verse 4, Psalm 110, verse 1, etc. The people have no rights. The counsels and devices of the heathen, America, Africa, Europe, and Asia, will be to annihilate Israel as the chief troublemaker in the world, Zechariah chapter 14, verse 1 to 4. They were always of this frame of mind. The Caesars, the popes, Constantine, the popes, Charlemagne, the popes, Napoleon, the popes, Hitler, the popes, etc. In contrast to these counsels and devices are the Lord's counsels and thoughts, verse 11. He will have his way, Isaiah chapter 58, verse 2, and the people will not have their way. His people will land on top of the pile, Romans chapter 11, verse 15 and 26, and the heathen will wind up on the bottom of it, Isaiah chapter 2, verse 11. Whose God is the Lord? Not dialectical materialism, Marxism, capitalism, Catholicism, Mohammedanism, Buddhism, Allah, education, science, or Catholic Church. The Lord looked from the heaven. He beholdeth all the sons of men. From the place of his habitation he looked upon all the inhabitants of the earth. He fashioned their hearts alike. He considered all their works. Having mentioned the counsels and devices of the heathen, the Lord now explains why his counsels and thoughts will stand instead of theirs. He looked from heaven and beholded all the sons of men, verse 13, an impossible thing to imagine if you are a humanist, naturalist, evolutionist, or pragmatist. How doth God know? Psalm chapter 73, verse 11, and book of Job, chapter 22, verse 13. David said that God knew his downsitting, his uprising, Psalm 139, verse 2, and even his thoughts from afar off. Paul says God will judge the secrets of men when they are brought into judgment for every secret thing, Romans chapter 2, verse 16, and Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 14. God has a tape deck computer, so-called, located in the brain of his creatures. It will not fail to keep a permanent record of thoughts as well as every idle word, Matthew chapter 12, verse 36, that a man speaks. He considered all their works, verse 15. The devil pulled his biggest trick on mankind through Western civilization in the 1800s when he convinced European and American, etc. men that God didn't know where they put their hands or what they did in privacy. Christ said nothing would remain hidden and all would be uncovered. Matthew chapter 10, verse 26. The thoughts of the Lord will still stand, verse 11, no matter what is taught or what is not taught. He fashioned all their hearts alike, is true in the sense that he set up man's inner workings so they would record what the Creator thinks and what he intends. Hebrews chapter 4 verses 12 to 13. All men are made alike when it comes to the functions of imaginations, feelings, impulses, motives, and ambitions. Though they are depraved and God is not responsible for this. They are made alike in the sense that every man, all alike, is under God with no exceptions. The ways that God fashioned or framed the heart are as follows. So that it can be tried. Jeremiah chapter 17 verse 10. So that it can love him. Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 5. So that it can love something else. 1 Peter chapter 1 verse 22. So that it can rejoice. Psalm 33 verse 21. So that it can have trouble. John chapter 14 verse 27. So that it can be hardened. John chapter 12 verse 40. So that it can faint. Deuteronomy chapter 20 verse 8. So that it can be perfect. 1 Kings chapter 8 verse 61. So that it can study. Proverbs chapter 15 verse 28. So that it can speak. Matthew chapter 12 verse 34. So that it can lust. Matthew chapter 5 verse 28. In addition to this, men's hearts are fashioned alike in the sense that they all desire immortality and all need a God to worship. Furthermore, they seek three basic animal goals: self-preservation, self-propagation, and self-gratification. There is no king saved by the multitude of an host. A mighty man is not delivered by much strength. An horse is a vain thing for safety, neither shall be delivered any by his great strength. Behold, the eye of the Lord is upon them that fear him, upon them that hope in his mercy, to deliver their soul from death, and to keep them alive in famine. In the old days they trusted in horses, verse 17, and thought that when their cavalry was gone, they were gone. 2 Kings chapter 7, verse 13. Ahaziah and Joash couldn't get away on their horses fast enough, and Pharaoh's horse, Exodus chapter 15 verse 19, didn't do him much good either. An horse is a vain thing for safety. If you flee quickly, those that pursue you will be quicker. Isaiah chapter 30 verse 16. Zedekiah's horse got him nowhere. 2 Kings chapter 25 verse 5. In the modern vernacular, a tank is a vain thing for safety, so is an airplane also. The deliverance, verse 19, will have to come from God, not alliances. No king is saved by the multitude of an host, and that is why David did wrong when he numbered the people, 2 Samuel chapter 18 verse 1. He was glorying in his military power. He was counting on his Polaris missiles and nuclear warheads. A mighty man, for example, Samson, is not delivered by much strength. All the mighty men of valor in Sennacherib's army, over 180,000, were sacked in one night, 2 Chronicles chapter 32 verse 21. Deliverance from a slow death, famine, or deliverance from a sudden violent death, verse 19, is for those who fear God and hope in his mercy. Verse 18, Elijah is an exact case. Our soul waited for the Lord. He is our help and our shield. For our hearts shall rejoice in him, because we have trusted in his holy name. Let thy mercy, O Lord, be upon us, according as we hope in thee. Note the transition from the third person plural there, them, in verse 18 and 19 to our and we, verses 20 and 21. This is David speaking for Israel. Our soul waited. He is our help and our shield. Our heart shall rejoice. We have trusted. Be upon us as we hope in thee. Verse 20 to 22. All of these things, of course, can be applied individually to Christian. We should, first, wait for the Lord. Second, rejoice in him. Third, hope in him. And we should do this because we have trusted in his holy name, verse 21, and because he is our help and our shield, verse 20. Amen.